Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. How
Yeah.
are you?
I'm so good. It's so good to see you. I'm preparing a meeting and it's going to be in another space in my house.
Mhm.
I just didn't have the time to like bring the computer up there. There's like light. I'm like in a dark room.
No,
So
don't worry. I mean, this is like more organic anyway, I'm sure. Literally, as you're drinking the juice.
exactly.
I'm so like kind of bummed because I know we were supposed to do this in person
I
and
know.
it wasn't even going to be like an official interview. And after last week, I was just kind of taking care of my mental health.
Yes.
But you were the first person that came to mind.
Oh, yay. Thank you. I'm so glad.
Absolutely. So right now, what are you doing to kind of how are you coping with this whole thing? I feel
You
like
know,
you're the go-to.
what?
You're the go-to on, how to like stay calm, but like realistically calm.
I'm
So
realistically calm. It's a strange time, right? Because it's not like a normal thing where I just think a lot of things need to be addressed. The first thing is that this is like a prison sentence, right? So if someone gets sent to prison, they have choices of how they're going to endure that time. Are they going to read many philosophical texts? Are they going to like totally work out their body? Are they going to learn to meditate? Are they going to create daily routines that serve the higher so that they can connect in a new way? Or are they going to just like whatever the fuck you do in prison that's like super low grade, right? Like
right.
get fat. So it is like that. It's a prison sentence. In my book, I talk about this. It's called the law of payment
Hmm.
and also the law of shocks.
Right.
So I think in terms of the law of payment too, like this is like it's payment, right? So everyone has like a lot of people, especially when it first started, came to me and were like, um, what do I do? I'm so afraid of dying. I'm so afraid that I'll lose my money. I'm so afraid, da 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 da, whatever the fears were. And I
Right.
was thinking how lucky I was. I've just suffered all of that already. And not all of it. I mean, like, I haven't suffered a bazillion different things, but I suffered all the things I suffered.
Mhm.
And those things really helped me to see that we get those things at a certain time, exactly when we're supposed to. So, like, if COVID for someone is a very bad time, like divorce, financial, like total destruction,
Mhm.
um, death or death of a loved one. If
Right.
that's the time for someone, then there's a reason for that. And I just want to like, because people are all over the internet being really sensitive about that. Oh, well, let's not call it a global pandemic because some of us are just at home eating drinking lattes and like we have no right to blah blah blah.
Right.
And it's like, oh, like everyone's getting exactly what they need in this moment.
Right. So what do you think you're getting out of it?
Like, I don't like it. So I just want to say that. Like, I'm not like, woohoo, COVID, you know? There's a lot of people also, I don't know if you've heard this too, but sometimes I'll talk about things on social and people will be like, I love this quarantine. Or they'll be like, I can really hear the birds chirping and like,
Mhm.
oh, I can feel the earth healing. And I'm just kind of like, all right, like, I get it. I get it. But also, like, there's a lot of freedoms that have been taken from us. Like, I can't even remember. Like, I just got an email from Soho House and I was like, Soho House,
Remember the day.
remember the days when I
Yeah.
used to like go and see people and also you see these photos of people in the 1920s wearing masks and shit. This isn't like, no one needs to go out right now. You do not need to go out and wear a mask. If you do not need to go out, do not go out. It's fucking dangerous. You could kill people. You could die.
It's funny because you sound like you still have kind of like the New Yorker mentality where even though you're in Colorado and you have the space, your mind is, I feel like it's mentally in like that Manhattan sort of lockdown where you're like, no, I'm told what to do. I'm not going outside. Like like, I feel like it's almost as though your energy never left Queens.
It can't. It's you can't leave New York City. I'm a New Yorker, like tried and true, for sure.
I mean, I read the book. I read it like at least once. I took the entire journal. I took notes the entire way.
I'm
With,
so excited to hear that.
and I did that during the week when I did my first solo trip to Charleston. That's when I read it, when I actually had the time to look inward. I was avoiding kind of accepting the truth right now for so long. And then I was like, no, I have to allow myself to just like let this wash over and break down and say, like, hell no, I'm not okay with this anymore.
Oh, it's such a good time to read it. And I will say, so you asked me what I'm doing. Like, I have completely restructured my habit state in the sense that as soon as this started, I made a commitment to not complain. while this is happening.
Okay.
That's not to say that I don't cry. That's not to say that I don't get bad moods. That's not to say that I don't get sad. That's not to say that I don't get angry. All of that happens. But complaining is a very specific recipe. It's
Yeah.
literally saying, like, I wish things were this way, but they're not. And so I'm annoyed. That I'm not doing. So that's been really helpful and definitely a good advice for whoever will read this. Like, definitely complaining and taking this as a diet, like a complaint diet,
Mm-hmm.
is a phenomenal tool. Another thing is habits, right? So before, my habits were interrupted by daily activity. Oh, I had to go do this. I had to go fly to Australia. I had to go speak at a conference, etc. And so I had lots of excuses for why I couldn't figure out learning a new skill. Like for me, cooking and working out were always things that were like very like, who has time and who's like dumb enough to give a shit that much about like health and wellness. Like that's always been my thing.
Right.
And so I've just really like surrendered to, the truth is that I really want to be super healthy, not for COVID's sake. I mean, COVID will kill me, or yeah, just for the purpose of really being as alive as possible. And so I've been cooking, even though sometimes I really don't want to. And I've been working out like 5-6 days a week, and doing some form of movement 7 days a week, non-negotiably. And that's been really extraordinary as well.
So when you find yourself kind of, when all the pressure of everything's coming down on you and you get sad and you get emotional, I like how you're saying how you're actively choosing not to complain, because that choice probably makes such a difference. But what is sort of your mantra that you keep repeating in your head when you're getting to that sad place? So you kind of, I always think that there's sort of like a limit to emotions. Like if you allow yourself, I mean, I kind of got it from, what is it? Tuesdays with Maury, or one of the Mitch Albom books, where if you allow yourself a certain amount of time to feel an emotion and then you cut it off. So what is that experience like? What's your mantra?
Such a good point. Yeah, no, I've a couple things. I think the first thing is that I'm remembering that I am being turned into what is called bug soup in the process of the cocooning.
Mm-hmm.
When a caterpillar is turning into a butterfly, there's like a period where it totally melts down into a soup. And then is then transformed. From that soup comes this new form, which is the butterfly.
Right.
So I feel like very much like we are being melted down. I often also repeat the mantra of, I am being worked on right now. So sometimes like we would like it to be that we would be worked on, meaning by the higher, like imagining that we are a synthesis of human, which is like this gross, dying, pooping, farting, insecure, doubtful, limited being.
Mm-hmm.
And then this higher thing, which is this limitless, effervescent thing made out of pure and sheer light, right? And I think that for some of us, especially those on a spiritual pursuit, we want to be in this spiritual like light place all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget that sometimes it's not easy to work on us when we're in that position. Like just like an artist needs to manipulate its its what do you call it?
It's Pete.
Oh, it's memory.
It's not fair.
Medium, right? So
Okay.
like medium needs to sometimes be changed, right? So sometimes it needs to be melted down, sometimes it needs to be hardened, sometimes the oil needs to dry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the mantra for me is just like, I am not clear on what will the universe or God, how that universal energy is going to make me useful.
Mm-hmm.
I would like it that if I looked like Giselle, right? And if I like had the mind of Albert Einstein, and I had like the career of, whoever, right? And like, if I just pieced it together and made like this perfect human, in my mind, I think that is what will make me most useful to the divine. I've been quite useful to the divine, just like this like weird, broken human. So like, clearly we all are, here exactly as we should be.
Well, I noticed that. So obviously when I reposted your thing on Instagram, that was the first time I saw how you referenced your book as the Rebel's Guide to Meditation. Because this entire time I've been calling it the meditation book for people who don't like meditating.
That's amazing.
And when people ask me, like someone asked me last night, she's like, I just can't find time for myself. And I see yoga people, but I'm not a yoga person. I want to know how to meditate. So why did you reference it as like the Rebel's Guide to Meditation? How do you see your own book?
Like my meditation and my spiritual practice is not about giving up your desires or your belongings. Mm-hmm. However, in this case, that's the thing that's interesting about fourth way work, is that it's in the conditions within you, within which you are, right. Which means that as soon as this started, this pandemic, to me, like, these did not seem like optimal conditions within which to practice my spiritual awakening. Like, in my idea, like, spiritual awakening is meant to be experienced while shopping at Barney's, as I've said many times in the book, or like while laying on the rooftop of the Petit Hermitage, which happens to be one of my favorite hotels in LA.
Mhm.
But you can't do any of that shit right now, right? So
Right.
then it was like, oh, this is a much less glamorous version of my fourth way practice. The fourth way is just says, like, it's enlightenment under the conditions within which you are, right? So that means that if the conditions change or worsen, your work is still the same. If you're someone who's willing to work at Barney's, then you have to be willing to work now. And I would call what we're going through right now, for the ones of us who are not on the front lines and the ones of us who are not in the hospital dying, we're like in a prison / monastery right now. That's kind of what it feels like, right? So if someone had said to me, would you like to go to prison for 2 years? Or would you like to be in a monastery for 2 years? I would have definitely said no. But I'm benefiting greatly from it. And if you read the law of payment and look through bits of that particular chapter for this article, I feel like the law of payment speaks to what this is, which is that we are currently paying for something. So who we walk out of this as in 2 years, because I do think it's going to be like a year and a half, that person that we have been trying to become. So how can we use this time to truly allow ourselves to be made, to be created?
If you could add a 45th, what would it be? I don't know if you've been asked that before, so I'm just
I
curious.
haven't, but I'll tell you something. So in the work that I teach, which is fourth way work, there's 48 laws. I
Oh.
chopped off 4 of them because they were way too woo-woo and out there
Mhm.
to even write about, because my whole work is about making this accessible for the everyman and for the people like us who are like, okay, chill with the chakra shit, you know what I mean? Turn it down a notch.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because I've never seen a fucking chakra. I just haven't. And so, like, if I can't see a chakra and if I can't identify then I don't want to talk about it, right? So I'd rather talk about things that I can verify. I guess that's what we should say. We should say there's 4 laws that are just, it would take a 4-day immersive ceremony to understand. And as soon as this thing is over, let's come together to do that practice.
That's a good idea.
One thing that my husband always says that I love, he says, if we don't do anything in this life, if we never make an effort, if we never lift a finger to try to, you know, become our greatest, we're on a downward escalator. And you can really see this with normal people. If you look around you and you look at normal people, many of them get worse with age. It's not like they get better. Like, they get more depressed, they get more unhealthy, they get more into the habits that have kept them sluggish and asleep and miserable. And they don't accomplish great things, right? And so when you see someone who's fighting for their greatness, it's not something that's like for free. It's actually much, much more effort, because you're actually on a downward escalator. And, you know, and if we were all to like trip on ecstasy, which is basically what doing my breath work feels like, but if we were really to trip on literal ecstasy for 5 hours, we would be like, oh my God, like, the universe is one and we're all one and we love each other and blah, blah, blah. But then 5 hours later, it's like, it's ripped right out of you, you know, for anyone who's ever done it, like, it feels like it's taken away. And then you're like, wait, what? Fuck! Like, I don't want to be back here. This is not about, like, yes, of course, there's tropical islands and, you know, we hang out in Montauk and the Hamptons, gorgeous oceans, beautiful people. There's tons of beauty to behold here. It's not about that. It's about us. We are the problem. We can't even behold all that beauty because we're so oppressed by these laws that are pushing on top of us.
Mm-hmm. And what I love about your book is how you're constantly talking about working on the inside. It's not about a simple way to get to a higher place. It's not about, oh, if I meditate, everything will be okay. Like, you want to meditate, you got to do the real work. Like, get your shit in order, figure it out, and that's how you get it done. And that's what makes you so relatable, because you're not like, here's my book and here's just love and light and crystal sound.
People used to ask me when I was much less along on my journey, like, if you could, would you live on a different planet where everyone was in a state of orgasm at all times and we could all just energetically blah blah? And I was like, oh yeah, I miss those planets, you know. And then one day it dawned, I don't think I could choose a better planet than this, like a planet that's so painful and so brutal, so raw, and makes us cry, and birth and death. I mean, I look at my baby and it's like, I don't know any mother who could possibly look at her baby without thinking, oh my God, this kid is going to die one day. One day, maybe she might be very old when she dies, but to think that I have no control over that, and to think I love her that much. And it's just so excruciating, and only brought, like, it's like brought to you by planet Earth, you know?
Oh, that's so cute. So how do you hope to come out of all of this? What's your, obviously you want to come out a better person, but is there something right now that you're specifically working on?
I'm working, I mean, this is pretty like blasé, but I'm working on an online course, which is like, not because no one can leave their houses, but because I've always felt like, you know, obviously I'm a luxury brand and very few people work with me one-on-one, but there's so many people that want to work with me and could do it very easily if I just create something that's accessible to them online. So I've been working on that. And, but that's like more on the three-dimensional sphere. I also have a record coming out this summer, which is crazy. I recorded the vocals in New York right before COVID hit, and like we flew back on the wings of like the lockdown.
Wow. Okay. Well, I can't wait to see that. So send it my way.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah, of course.
thank you so much for your time and everything. And it was awesome connecting with you virtually.
So good connecting with you too. No, there's nothing but virtually now, so it's gotta be like real.
And if there's